Well, happy Wednesday. We gather for these midweek moments to catch up with one another briefly and get an update on where we are as a church related to on-site worship and our timeline, and then to pause and think a little bit about faith in the middle of the week. So I'm happy that we have this time together. It is early July and we are approaching 3 million people who've tested positive for COVID-19 in the United States. And certainly even in this morning's paper, South Carolina, Florida, Texas, we're the Sun Belt that shows the highest increase. These are troubling numbers. And I know that all who are part of the medical community and those of us who are not are certainly concerned about this. It does play a part in what we do and how we do things here at Bethel Church. In addition to the COVID numbers that are rising, we are also in a time where we're replacing the HVAC system in our sanctuary. We have signed a contract, we are moving forward with that, and so I'm grateful for the trustees and their hard work in bringing this action forward. It's a glass half full, if you will, that the HVAC system went out at a time when we were not in worship in late April. And so while we have been away from the building is being repaired, upgraded, and it'll be safe and ready for us when it's time to return. So continue to hold Bethel Church and its members and leaders and our community in your prayers as we move forward together. We're going to stay the course of online worship for the next few weeks as we watch the numbers, and hopefully we'll find them going back down, and then we'll mobilize to return to on-site worship hopefully soon. But speaking of that, let me pivot on that point to talk about a moment of faith and how I see our faith being lived out in these days. March 15th was the last time we were in worship here in the building, and then sort of simultaneously all across the United States and even around the world, the church was asked to leave the building. Now, we've talked about this before, but it's a crucial, fundamental truth that the church is not the building, the church is the people. So while we can't come to the sanctuary, we can be the church. Now it's different, and we all miss one another. We all miss the beauty of sacred space. We all miss the sound of the organ, the smiles of friends. We miss the children running up the aisle to Miss Nova. We miss so many things. But what I am reminded of, that I want to remind us all of today, is that throughout our sacred story, God has always seemed to be at work calling people to ministry beyond the walls of any building. There's Moses, who's out at work, back 40, tending sheep, right? And there's a burning bush, a call of God to be in ministry. There is David, who's a shepherd boy, almost gets overlooked when they come to say, okay, where are your sons? This one? No, not this one, not this one, not this one. Is this all? Well, got one more. David, he's out in the... Bring him. There's Simon Peter fishing on his boat. There's Levi at his booth. There's Mary at the well getting water. There's Paul on his way to Damascus. None of these stories happen in a building. God encounters us over and over and over and over and over again in the places where we live and work and play. These are unprecedented times, clearly. The church has had to leave the building for a season, but we are still called to be the church. So the church is called to do these 5 things. We are called to continue to be worshiping people. We'd all rather be in person than online, but we'll still give it our very best. We're called to be people who are about the work of discipleship, apprenticeship. We're called to continue to cultivate growth in faith. How do we practice the ways of Jesus? We're called to care for one another. Congregational care, yes, but care that we do for one another. We're called to serve our neighbors, to feed the hungry in our community and city. And we're called to manage our assets. These are, when we can't do everything, let us be about doing these things: worship, growing spiritually, apprenticing, discipleship, caring for one another, serving our neighbors, and managing our assets. And that's a stewardship issue. How do we care for the resources of buildings and people and financial support and time? All of these are things that we see through the lens of how do we steward our resources. So my hat is off. I'm not wearing multiple hats. My hat is off to all the people who are making these things work. Whether it's our staff team, whether that's the trustees, whether that's the finance committee, whether that's the church council. The United Methodist Church is this wonderful blend, partnership of laity and clergy, and together we are trying to do these 5 things so that we continue beyond the walls of the church to worship, to grow, to care, to serve, to steward. So that's our goal and our longing and our desire. May God help us continue to be faithful in these days. Reverend John Hipp will be preaching this Sunday, and I hope that you will join us then as we talk about these practices of Jesus this week, living justly, doing justice. So join us this Sunday morning as we gather around worship and the practices of faith that help shape our lives after the manner of Jesus. God's blessings to you and yours.